evening and welcome to the 168th ranked soccer podcast in the UK, Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy and I'm joined by Matt Robards tonight, and we have two extra special guests on the show. If you heard us on the Sactown FC Podcast last week, then you already know Jonathan and Luis. If you didn't, then why the heck didn't you listen to that? Get on YouTube now, listen to that episode from last week, and then come back and listen to this one. Welcome to the show, guys. Thanks for coming out Across the Pitch. We're going to talk some USL Western Conference tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having us on, Phil. It's an honor to be on your podcast as well. And, thank you for joining our podcast last week. That we had a lot of fun there.
Yeah, it was a great time. Thank you, Phil and Matt, for joining us and extending the favor to join you guys. We're excited to talk some soccer. Hypothetical, obviously, without it, but we'll definitely have a good conversation. I think it will be worth a listen.
Right on, man. Well, thank you guys for putting up with us again. We had a lot of fun last week. Again, like Phil said, go back and listen to those episodes or that episode. It was a good time talking with you guys for sure.
Yeah, last week we talked a little bit of youth development, and there's been some new developments on that story this week. But today we're here to talk about the USL Championship season that could have been. Now, of course, we're still hoping that there will be at least a modified version of the season played, and hopefully when it's played, we will be able to be in the stands. But there were some fantastic games on the schedule that would have been played. And what we've decided to do is that we're actually going into next Saturday, May 16th, would have been when Sacramento Republic would have traveled to Phoenix to play the Phoenix Rising. So we're doing a little bit of a hypothetical preview episode for a game that isn't going to happen. But we've also picked three key matches that would have been played so far. And of course, Sacramento started off the season with a draw. So catch up our listeners a little bit on maybe some of the additions and subtractions from the Sacramento roster and what did happen in that one game that they did play back in March.
Yeah, so I mean, we had a couple of players leave Sacramento. It wasn't that many actually too. We were actually pretty lucky to see most of the roster from last season come back. But if we were to look at like some of our new additions that we got, I know one of the ones that we're most excited for is definitely one of our forwards who actually played in one of our friendlies that me and John were able to go to. That was actually the last game that we were both able to go to. But that guy is Carlton Belmar. If any of you are not aware of him, look him up on YouTube, look up his highlight videos, and you'll see that like he has a lot of potential. He's been around the USL plenty of times. He really played well at all of his teams he's been in. So, we're really excited and looking forward to what he's going to really provide to us. And that friendly I was talking about, he actually helped us win that friendly, if I'm not mistaken too. Yeah, we had a win there. He just changed the team completely. Like that game we were down, I believe, right, John? We were actually losing, if I'm not mistaken. And he came in the second half. He completely changed the look of the team. So we're super excited to see him back on, to see, what his role is going to be like. And then if we look at some of the players, that came back, I mean, we got our all-time high goal scorer, Cameron Iwasa, coming back. Super excited to see how he does this season. And hopefully he has another season or two so he makes it to our MLS squad. That's my hope because the guy's a homegrown player and he's already given us a lot of joy. So we want to see him, with the team definitely when we start MLS. Aside from that, I mean, the first match, it was a tie. We were a bit disappointed because, it's our first home game. We're playing against a team that was in the last position really in the previous season, now under a different name, of course. But, we were expecting a much better result. And I think it came down to a lot of mistakes on our part. And that's really why we lost. But But, looking forward to when the season comes back. And I think things are definitely going to look better, hopefully.
Yeah, Owasa, he had 16 goals and 6 assists last year. So certainly he's a big-time scorer. You guys did get Thomas and Evolds. I can never say him right. Thomas and Evoldson. Matt, you can pick me up on this later. Thomas E., who left Orange County, went to Indy. Things didn't go real well for him. Came over to you guys. He had 8 goals and 4 assists in half a season. He left back to Orange County, so that's certainly going to be a big loss. One thing that really did catch my eye is you picked up a midfielder, Andrew Wheeler Amuno from Phoenix Rising. He hadn't played too much. He had only gotten into 6 matches for Phoenix last year. So I was happy to see that he went over there and started the first game, and it looks like he might be a guy that could get some more playing time. Is he a guy that you guys saw at all in the friendly, and is he looking to be a regular starter for you this year?
I think with our midfield's pretty stacked. We have a really good core, especially if we stick with the formation that is given to us by coach. But with Andrew, he brings a different game, very controlling defensive midfielder. I feel like he has the opportunity to move the ball well, find space, play the right ball. He was with Atlanta. I mean, he played with you guys. It was unfortunate his playing time wasn't what it should have been, but off of what I've seen with him, I think he has a real opportunity to stay with this squad and be a good fit going forward. I could see him being on the team going to MLS.
And you guys start playing the MLS in 22?
Yeah, 2022.
Is that right?
Yep.
So holding on to some of these players that you think might be able to make the jump, Cameron Owasa, Andrew Wheeler, that's pretty big. That's a long time in the USL, 2 years. So how do you guys feel about that? Do you think a lot of these guys are going to make that jump to MLS? Are they going to be more willing to stay maybe another year or two in Sac Republic with the hopes of making that squad, or how do you see that transition going?
So I'll put it in this light. It really depends on who the coach is going to be. If they stick with Mark Briggs, I think this is you add a real high quality goalkeeper or somebody in the middle of the park that can hold the game. But if Mark Briggs stays on as coach of the Republic, I think you're going to see a lot of the same faces. He'll use the academy. He was the academy coach beforehand, so he knows a lot of that. Last week, we talked about Greg Vanny, right, and how he works with the academy, and he really wants to bring those kids up. I really feel that's the same approach that we're going to see with Mark Briggs. And it always comes back to the coach building around the players. Go to LAFC, go to Atlanta, go to any club that had success that first year. They did the right thing by knowing who the coach was and building around his formation. You can't just stick somebody in there who doesn't play that formation. So you have to be really careful, and you have to make sure you make the right choices. So hopefully, if he stays on, this is the squad going forward with the addition of a few DPs.
Yeah, and I think if the players are smart, like let's put ourselves in their shoes too. If you have 2 seasons where you've had good performance, you've kind of done the merit to make it to MLS, then you're much better off staying in a team that's starting out than I think branching out to maybe another team and not being sure if you're actually going to be playing. At least being in the same city, you got higher chance. They already know who you are, and so if I was a player, I would definitely stay in the city, play this season, next season, and then make it to the MLS squad, because again, it's a new team. So I think you have more chances of actually making it to a team than maybe someone else that might be coming in a little later, or trying to come in a little later. So hopefully they do stay. That's my hope. I mean, of course, we all want the stars, or other players that are playing for other MLS squads to join in. But at the end of the day, I still want to see maybe at least, a couple of players that, we've seen over the last years, or maybe we've just seen this year, because I think those are the players that are really going to be the most committed to the team, especially if they stick around for these 2 years.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. You see a lot of teams like FC Cincinnati and, Nashville, they'll carry over some players, from their USL squad, but a lot of those guys don't even play. And a lot of that's due to that coaching change. They either, the coach comes over from the USL, doesn't start off well in the MLS, then he gets the sack and they bring in someone new. So that's a great point, man. Just that motivation that they're there, they know everybody. So it's definitely exciting, that you guys are jumping up. I'm not going to lie. I like the fact that in 2 years you guys will be gone, because you're one of those teams that when I see that on the schedule, I'm always like, oh man, here comes this game. Who knows what it's going to bring? And so it'll be good. It'll be good to see you guys kind of up in the MLS. That stadium too, I just looked it up on the website. That stadium that they have planned looks sick. That design is nice.
Yeah, it's kind of like our award, I guess, for waiting so long for them to make the announcement. It's like, okay, it was worth the wait.
Yeah, if you guys out there haven't seen the stadium announcement, go to MLS2, that's the number 2, SAC.com, and it's right there on the landing page. I mean, this stadium will look very nice in the MLS for sure. Yeah,
and that lot where the stadium's going to be at, it's an abandoned, really like rail yards lot. I mean, it's super huge. I don't even know how many acres, and they're planning on really bringing in like a big shopping center, some apartment complex. I mean, it's going to be like amazing. They're going to build it's really going to help, downtown grow a lot. So, I mean, super stoked because it's going to bring, a lot of jobs to the local area too. And it's going to make the city grow that much more. So yeah, it's going to be great. And me and Jonathan are actually going to be out there recording some podcasts once there's some progress. I know they haven't really started yet, as far as we know. So once we start seeing something, then we're going to go out there and do some podcasts so we can show everyone the progress.
That's going to be excellent to see, and I can't wait to see you guys reporting on the work. And it's great to, like you said, great to see something that's going to help grow the city. I remember when you go back to the early 1990s here in Phoenix, and before the Phoenix Suns basketball team built their arena downtown, and then of course eventually the Diamondbacks came. The downtown area was just really. You didn't want to go down there after dark. And, they put in the sports stadiums, and it really, revitalized the area. So, I mean, and that's what people don't understand is what an important part sports are to the community in terms of, not just, local businesses that are around the stadium, everything from, hotels, parking garages, bars and restaurants. Everyone benefits from having that team there, and I I'm just really excited for you guys. And but I think what Matt said is a really good segue to the meat of what we're going to talk about tonight. And what he said was that when Phoenix does see Sacramento on the schedule, we kind of cringe a little bit because we know it's going to be a difficult match. And if we were playing football still, Sacramento would be coming into Phoenix, Arizona field on Saturday. So we're going to talk about what we think that game would have gone like a little bit later. But we started out by picking 3 key matchups for each club. Going through the season, that we're going to kind of go and say where we think the clubs would have stood kind of if things had happened. And we're going to go in chronological order here. And the first one that I picked out was a rematch of last year's Western Conference second round. Phoenix Rising against Real Monarchs Salt Lake. That game was going to happen on Saturday, March 14th. It would have been the second match of the season. it would have been at Salt Lake City. Phoenix had come out and absolutely dominated, won their first match 6-1. Salt Lake, coming off of the championship, they came out, they dropped their opening match. So this would have been Phoenix Rising 1-0, coming into Salt Lake City 0-1, licking the wounds of an opening night loss. What do you guys think would have happened with this match that happened? I'm going to go ahead to start with Matt, since this is a Phoenix Rising game.
Yeah, I think this is one of those ones that, again, we would have had circled on the schedule coming into this year, especially since they knocked us out of the playoffs. Then they went on to lift the cup. And then whenever you're traveling up to, Salt Lake, it's a good match. Last year we had the Butt Caro goal. I don't know if you guys caught that one, but the Monarchs keeper went to clear a ball, and one of our midfielders, John Baccaro, kind of threw his butt into it, deflected the ball right into the net. So it's lovingly known here in the Valley as the Butt Caro goal. I think we would have walked away with that with a draw, to be honest with you. I think we're coming off that high of dominating 6-1 to a very poor Portland Timbers 2 team, but then going to Salt Lake on the road, they're looking there for their first win. I'm sure they had some sort of presentation ready for the trophy and some sort of celebration. So they would have been riding that high. I think we would have walked out of there maybe 1-1, 2-2, something like that.
I mean, for me, going back and remembering last year, there was a run of a few games, I'll call it, that you guys were just dominating. We're talking 4-goal efforts, 3-goal efforts, you name it. And that went for most of the season, I think, during at least the summer months. Maybe it was the heat in Phoenix, so everybody got tired. But you guys had starting in the middle of September, the run that you guys had got poor. And it's normally not about your record. It's how your momentum going into the playoffs, right? So you get to the playoffs, you have Austin, they take you to penalties. We're talking about Austin Bold here. And then you lose to Real. So I think that's one of those games that I know for me personally, as a former athlete at some point, you circle those days like, okay, I have them on the calendar. And that's kind of your game that you start the season off and you put some swagger in, because looking back at your season, it's disappointing, right? You have all of this momentum. You make it to the semifinals. You're the best team in the league, essentially, and you putter out. So I think they had that marked on their calendar, and I think they go into Real and put a hurting on them, because you lost at home in the semis, and you have a vendetta, and you owe it to them.
Yeah, I'm always the pessimist when it comes to my teams, man.
Yeah, I think aren't we all, right? I think we all kind of judge our teams, and I think it's good. I mean, but I personally think, if we look at it this season, good game. You guys had that was a really intense game last year that you guys had, and it was close, But I think looking at it from this season, your first game, you guys won 6-1. That you just demolished the T2. And Real Monarchs, they lost 1-0 against San Antonio. So I think going into that game, I feel like you guys would have probably dominated that game. And I'm not just saying it just because I'm on your podcast here, but I really think that it seems like maybe this Real Monarchs team, judging off the first game and then off the game we had against them, which was our last friendly, it doesn't seem like it's the same as the one we saw last year. And we see this happen often, not just in the USL, but around the world, where one season you get one champion and then the next season that champion isn't all that great. If I could think of like an example in Liga MX, last season we had Monterrey as the champion, and this season they're last place. And in fact, they have not won a game, and we've had 10 weeks already. Things like this happen, and I think Real Monarchs is going through a similar situation. So that's what I think with them. But yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you guys are saying, because it just seems like, because the Real Monarchs, they are a 2 team, they're going to have even more turnover than just about anybody else. And I'm just looking at their roster from last year, and then also the guys that played this year in that first match. And there's just not a lot of the same guys that are on the roster. And then one guy that is on Real this year that played in Phoenix last year is Devin Vega. He did not start, but he is in on the Salt Lake roster. A guy that I've had my eye on for the Real Monarchs this year that he didn't pop up in that first game is Joe Gallardo. He was a guy who was the leading scorer for the Richmond Kickers last year, and he was supposed to be a really big signing. And I was kind of looking for him to pop up, but he didn't in that first match. So that might be a guy that if he comes in and gets going, maybe that'll be a kick in the pants. Two things I want to say about the Monarchs last year is that game that Matt mentions, the one with the Butt Carew goal. That was actually, to me, that was the game that really was a turning point in the season and launched Phoenix on that winning streak. That was really the game where things just really kind of started to come together. I think that they were like 2-2 coming into that game. That was about the 7th match of the year, and they, it had just been very inconsistent. They had gone down 1-0, and then they came back and scored 4 in that one, and it was kind of a launching point. But then, like you guys were saying, by the end of the season, Phoenix kind of burned out a little bit once their winning streak ran out, where it was the Monarchs who were just that team that got hot at the right time. And I think that Phoenix is going to go in there. They're returning a lot of the same players. Salt Lake, they're still trying to kind of find out who they are, trying to find out, who their starting 11 is even going to be this year. I think this would have been pretty solidly a Phoenix victory, because not only are they going to be more experienced and more cohesive at this point in the season, they're going to be going in there mad as hell. The next game that we had was going to be a Sacramento one, and that one was going to be on March the 25th. And I had circled on the calendar that on March the 25th, you guys were going to be playing Reno at home. And that's always a big matchup. And do you guys consider Reno to be your derby?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, we've had some interesting games against them. The games have gone really intense too. And I've gone to a couple of games at home. And yeah, I know I've heard stories of things happening around the stadium at one of the games, which I didn't actually see personally too. So, both supporters groups can really get really intense and a lot of rivalry, and they bring some of their supporters down to that game too. So those games, all 10 of them there. They had more, but fortunately for them, they lost them, but we got them now. But yeah, I would say that they're definitely our biggest rival. And I would add to that we were kind of talking on our podcast that at the time, before this whole thing happened and we got everything rescheduled, we were a bit sad to see that they scheduled that game during the week. So it was supposed to be on a Wednesday, and those are sort of the big games that we really like to see. And for it to be on a Wednesday, we are a little disappointed at that. So hopefully now things are going to change, and now hopefully they'll reschedule it for a weekend. But yeah, it's definitely the match that we look forward to each season. And before Fresno disappeared, Fresno was the other one I really looked forward to. I think both were really great rivalries, but now we're left with Reno, I think, as being the main one.
So do you think that rivalry, that's obviously just because of the close proximity between the two cities? It's a couple hour drive, right? Just a lot.
Yeah, a lot has to do with it. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hour drive, depending on where you live. They've always had, during the regular season, they own us. They always own us during the regular season. And last year we had matches that we lost 4-1, 2-0. So we didn't have the best results during the season against them. and that's okay. Again, like I said, it's not how you finish season, it's how you finish season, not how you start it. But we got in the playoffs. We drummed them at their place 3-1, and we kind of at that point, Reno. Again, they're a hard in-game, in-season team, but during the playoffs or preseason, we don't see much from them. They cower. So
also in the Open Cup too.
in the Open Cup. So if you're keeping track at home, you can win the regular season, but we send you fishing or skiing, whatever it may be during that time of year.
Right, kind of those games that matter when you're playing these long seasons. You drop one or two. It's all right, especially in the USL where what is it? 12 out of 18 teams make some form of the playoffs. Yep. Where I think 8 through 12 makes play-in rounds. And so if you make the playoffs, right, that's success. And they finished second last year. They played some really good matches, and then you guys went into their place and sent them packing. So,
and for this particular game, I think one of the things that we need to have a conversation or even think about is how it's going to look. What is it going to look like during that time? It's a weekday game. The stadium's going to be not as full or robust as it should be for such a rivalry. People would show up either late or not at all because of work. That's why these kinds of games are really important for a weekend, because you're going to get the full effect, right? You're going to get all the supporters. You're going to get all the drums. You're going to get all the noise. All the people will show up. They'll be in the parking lot beforehand, doing what they got to do to get ready. And that just brings an extra oomph. So I'm glad in a way that this game didn't play because of the weekday. And I still think that if it was played, I could see Sac Republic or even Reno pulling. Obviously, I want my team to win, but based off of past results, I can see Reno coming in and getting a win. I really like to think differently and hope that we would put on a good show and return the favor of a 4-1 as opposed to taking that.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you guys are saying. And I think that the USL probably does need to take into account a little bit more when scheduling games on, what are derbies and what are travel games, because like Las Vegas is our closest away day. They seem to always end up getting scheduled on a weekday. And Matt, was it San Diego scheduled for a weekday for us too this year?
Yeah, San Diego away was a Wednesday, and so I know there are a couple people talking about making that drive out there for that, but it's just tough, man. And it's one of those things where I think USL needs to have a little bit more forethought, looking ahead at the schedule and saying, hey, here's these big rivalry games, here's these big regional games, whatever it is. We need to put these on weekdays because, not only can more people in Sacramento come out because, they're not having to deal with traffic and getting off work, but even, instead of the 5 Reno supporters making that drive, you'll have all 10 of them. They can just get the 12 passenger van and drive out together.
Yeah, that's always a good time. And one thing that I did notice, this was something that I wanted to get your guys' opinion on. To me, one of the biggest signings in the whole entire USL during the offseason, probably the second biggest signing after Phoenix getting Santi Moar, was Reno getting Foster Langsdorff off of Portland Timbers 2. I mean, Foster Langsdorff, here's a guy, he's 24 years old. He is actually, when he played in college, he is the all-time leading scorer in the Pac-12 conference history. He had 7 goals and 6 assists for a horrible Portland team. What do you think that this guy is going to do when he's getting to service, Corey Herzog? I mean, I think Foster Langsdorff for Reno is going to be a scary proposition this year.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely, a good signing on their part too. And, like you were kind of saying, like Corey Herzog, we know kind of player he is. I mean, we've seen him firsthand at some of our games. And so I think that they're going to have a good partnership, and it's kind of exciting for them to have that. And, it'll just make our rivalries more intense. So, I mean, I'm all for that. Let's have more intense games and all that too. And if we see them again in the playoffs, even better. Hey, we'll be able to go make the trip out there and and get to see them. So I mean, I think it's good when you see some of those players move around, especially being that he was in that T2 team that was just a disaster too. So it's good for him to do that, and hopefully it helps him grow more.
Yeah, I always like to see a guy that's putting up good stats on a bad team and then see him go to a good team and see what happens. You know, those are usually the guys that tend to have a big season. And, you know, I think that would be an interesting match. And I think Wednesday is something that, you know, weird things kind of tend to happen. And this is kind of, you know, you got a derby game, you got two teams that hate each other, you got a Wednesday. This is one that I could have saw going maybe like 3-3 with the late equalizer, and, you know, both teams leave pissed off with a point. You know?
I could see it going that way. The thing with Langsdorff, going back to him, you know, you touched on an idea. You can take a good player and put him on a bad team. He's still a good player. The team's still bad, right? It's not making much of a difference. And in fact, if I remember correctly, I don't even think he played in Reno's first game. I think he was. So, you know, that makes you question like what he's what he brings. You know, Stanford is always a good club for college. It's one of the top teams in the country. But once he left college in 2017, he's played, you know, 60 some odd games. He's scored 22 goals. So that kind of gives you an idea of, he played 82, scored 37. So his game to goal ratio isn't that high. You know, it's not anything to desire. He does have he's a threat. I don't think he's as solid as we may think he is.
Yeah, I agree with that, man.
Well, I have been, at least at the USL Championship, just looking at the last two seasons. In 2018, 26 starts, 14 goals, 4 assists. Last year, 24 starts, 7 goals, 6 assists. So, I mean, over the last 2 years, he has 21 goals and 10 assists in 50 starts. That's pretty solid, especially playing for a bad team.
Well, yeah, but for me, man, I would want to know who those goals were against. You know, is he scoring goals against other bad teams, or is he putting the ball away against, you know? So, going back to last season when Phoenix Rising played, I don't remember him being on the field when Phoenix Rising played T2. So he wasn't scoring against us. That I think that's what we got to look at too. It's not just like, oh, look at these stats. He's played this many games, scored this many goals. Well, who are those goals coming against? Okay, so we've seen Rufat Dadashov score our first hat trick in club history, which was awesome to see live. It was a great way for him to get up, and hopefully that's that boost of confidence he needs. But I wouldn't walk around saying he's better than Adam John at this point because he scored a hat trick. I mean, he scored 3 goals against Portland Timbers too, which again looks like they're going to be the worst club in the USL. I think we got to look at not just the stats, but also, you know, the eye test. Is who are they playing? Who is he scoring these goals against? And are they, you know, is it kind of like a striker's goal? He's in the right place at the right time? Or is he at the top of the box, taking a touch, creating that foot of space, and then letting one rip from 20 yards out? I think those are two very different things. Michy Batshuayi for Chelsea has scored some goals, some important goals, and I still don't think he's a Chelsea quality striker.
Well, I also I'll go back to, you know, episode 6 of Jordan's documentary on Sunday, and spoiler alert, you know, he went in and he put it to Dan Marley. Dan Marley was this great defender, right? And Jordan went in and lit him up for every game in that series to average more than 40 points. So it's the same thing applies throughout sport. You could have a great game against a terrible team. You could be a great player on a terrible team. It's just a matter of does that equal success throughout?
Well, I mean, I would say I'm just kind of looking at his game logs from last season, and he didn't score against Phoenix. He did start and play the full game on June 29th. That was the one that was at Phoenix, and then in the late season game, he only subbed on for 19 minutes. But just looking at his goals, some of them came against decent teams. He scored against Orange County. He scored against New Mexico. some of them came against lesser teams. He scored against Tacoma. He scored 2 against Colorado. I mean, I would say, about half good teams, half bad teams. I mean, but, he was just playing on a horrible team. And this is a guy that, he's caught my attention. To me, he was their best player on the pitch last season. Anytime that I saw them play. And then, like I said, I just saw him go to Reno. I thought, that's a big pickup. You're right. He didn't play the first game. So, I don't know what's up with that. But I mean, Santi Moar didn't play the first game for Phoenix. And I know they had big plans for him.
Right. Yeah, he was injured. So Phil, let me ask you this, man. You got to pick one: Adam Jean or Foster Langsdorff for Phoenix Rising this year.
Oh, I'd pick Adam John. I mean,
right.
Adam John's the guy that's playing in the MLS now. So I mean, that's not really a fair question.
Right. And he's played in the MLS, but he didn't really produce in the MLS before. He had his best season when he came to Phoenix Rising, and he put in 17 goals against any and every club. So that's my point is for me, I couldn't even tell you that Foster Langdorf played in those 2 games against Phoenix Rising, and he did. I think that's telling, especially for a guy who's a striker.
Here's my argument for Adam John. He's young, he's older, right? He's been through the grind. He knows what's expected. He started in MLS with the Earthquakes. He's a local boy from Sacramento. He knows his game, and maybe when Langsdorff joins Phoenix Rising in a year or 2, maybe he has the same success, right? So you never know.
I mean, I think that my point at the beginning was that I was excited to see a guy that I thought was a talented player joining a better team and wanted to see what I thought he would do with that team. I didn't necessarily say I thought he was saving the world. I said, here's a guy with some talent, finally getting a chance to play with a good team. I want to see what he's going to do.
I thought you just said that he was the greatest striker the U.S. has ever produced.
Well, I mean, that's not
I was just
saying
joking, man. I was just joking.
I know.
Hey, we got Josie.
Oh, man.
John's giving a thumbs down, and I would agree with that.
That's like saying Kobe Jones or Eric Ronaldo were the greatest strikers in American history.
Oh man!
I mean, let's be real. And that Preki was the greatest midfielder, and we never had Tab Ramos.
Kind of, off topic here, but I love giving Ronaldo a hard time when Vegas comes to town. I love it so much. I sit right behind the opposing team bench. So, all right, Phil, what's our third match here?
Yeah, let's move on. We've talked way more about Foster Langsdorff than I planned to. All right, well, we're actually moving back 4 days to the second game for Phoenix Rising, which was March 21st. This one was at San Antonio versus the hated San Antonio FC. Shout out to Harry. And so, Matt, what do you think would have happened when we went down to Southeast Texas?
Yeah, this is a good trip. We've had some good results there. We've had some bad results there. Last year was fun. Obviously, when we started the season and went there, we were kind of in the midst of this, drawing games and then losing to the Austin Bold for some reason. But, it's tough, man. It's tough to say. They've reloaded some this year. They've kept some players. You're on the road in Texas. I think we'd come out a 1-0 victory down there in Texas.
I think we'd be looking at a tough matchup too. I want to give a tie to you guys too. San Antonio's got a pretty good team. They actually have 2 former Czech Republic players, 2 of the players that we had last season that actually left, 2 of the few players, I should say. And Hayden Partain, we had him on our podcast a couple of weeks back, and he told us of some other players that they have on the squad. I know he focused primarily on this guy named PC, I guess is his name. He said he's something else, and so I haven't been able to look him up myself, but he talks great of him. And then we also sadly saw our defender Mitchell Tainer Libas too. He's a really great defender, really good at those aerial balls. So I think they seem to be a solid team, up back and up front too. So, I mean, I could probably see maybe like a 1-1 tie, but a really strong matchup too. So I think it's one that we're going to be out on the lookout for when that happens.
Yeah, they play you guys really tough, especially last year. You went in, it was 3-3 was your draw. You won 1-0. I think you don't get that same result. I think you'll see a couple of draws, especially in this match. I think you're gonna end up on the side of a kissing your sister kind of draw.
Yeah, that was the first match of the season last year. That was a weird game. It had an own goal in it, and Phoenix was really out of sync earlier in the year last year, and last year Phoenix had a lot of turnover. This year, really, other than at the striker position and a little bit at the center back position, they didn't have a tremendous amount of turnover, and they really just seemed in sync. They were in the second full year in Rick Schatz's system. I really think that they were a team, based on what we saw week one, that they were coming out of the gate on fire. San Antonio, they're a team that, just like Salt Lake, they've had a huge turnover. Now, I think Salt Lake probably turned over and ultimately got worse, where San Antonio turned over and probably got better. They still have Christian Pirano, but I don't see that he played in the first match, so I don't know if he's injured or if he would have played or not. That certainly would have been a big thing. But just like kind of looking back at San Antonio last year, well, one of their top scorers was Jack Barmby with 8 goals and 5 assists. And well, where's he at now? So, I mean, I'm just looking at, I think that San Antonio probably would have still been shelling, maybe not had Parado back. Phoenix would have coming off of maybe 3 wins in a row to start the season. I say they get their 4th 2-1. I definitely think Phoenix will have some draws and losses at some point in the season. It's just going to happen. But I think that Phoenix would have at least got through the month of March undefeated.
Yeah, Phil, you make a great point, man. I think San Antonio FC, if you look at the bottom half of the table from last year, again, the majority of teams in the USL, whether you're East or West, make some sort of playoff system. And San Antonio just missed out by a point over, to New Mexico. And I think they're the only team in that bottom half of the table that's improved, and we'll see them finish a lot higher this year. I don't think that they stay the same. I think they've definitely improved all over the field.
They've turned over just about every position. They also got rid of some guys that, maybe were not the best in the locker room. I mean, of course, we all know about the Billy Forbes situation, but I think that San Antonio, they're a team that they're used to being one of the top kind of teams, and they underachieved last year. And I think that they were really very aggressive in turning over the roster this offseason. And I think that we probably will see them maybe top 5, 6 at the table by the time the year is out. I just don't think they would have been ready to beat Phoenix that early in the season.
Yeah, man. I mean, you got to admit it's telling when they let Jack Barmby leave, who was one of their top scorers, and whether that's, they just didn't want to pay him or they knew that they had other players coming in to play that position that, were better. But he ultimately signed for Phoenix, where, if we look at our midfield, he's not a starter in that midfield. So he was told when he came in that he was probably coming in off the bench. And so I think that's telling of where they were headed this season.
Yeah. And just looking at last year, a telling stat is that Barmby actually attempted 3 penalty kicks for him last year. So, I mean, that tells you if he's taking PKs that, they thought he was probably their best goal scorer. And now he's going to Phoenix to, be a guy that might see 10, 15 matches all year.
I'll throw a little nugget in your ear. It's not really about who's the best goal scorer on your team. We could go back to Chico State, Chris Wondolowski's team. He got booted off free kicks by the goalkeeper. And the goalkeeper converted 5 of those tries that he took. and you look at how many points or how many goals Wando needed to pass everybody for the goal scoring record at Chico State, 4 goals. So had he taken those PKs, he would have been the all-time leading scorer at Chico State. But, he was kicked off.
I like that. That's a great little nugget there. I will tell you, there is an interesting story that is related to Accrington Stanley, is that their goalkeeper, Joe Bursick, has taken 2 free kicks this year and converted a penalty kick in a shootout in the FA Trophy. Goalkeepers and free kicks, it's the new. I've got nothing. It's the new something. Let's move on to the next game now.
Real quick, I think you just got if you're talking goalkeepers that are doing stuff on the field, you got to shout out Jorge Campos, right? Goalkeeper and striker in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Oh, late 90s, never really early 2000s. He was stuck between those posts at those times.
Yeah, I guess that is true. But prior to but he was playing still in the early 2000s, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that was always cool to see him in the back there at the between the sticks, and then he'd go and switch out those jerseys and run up front and go score a goal. So good times.
Yeah, he's the one that he claims to be the lucky charm of my team in Mexico, Cruz Azul, of our last championship, even though I think he only played like 2 games. So yeah, he's an interesting dude. Yeah, cool guy. You could still catch him on Mexico TV station cracking some jokes at games. So
that's right. Does he wear like very colorful shirts and jackets when he's presenting on TV?
No, I think they usually got him in like a suit and tie, but I mean he still wears those at like games that he'll organize and all that too. So he still does that, and it's kind of funny. Little quick side story here. Me and our other co-host of the show, Danny, we actually just found out that I guess when he was playing with us with Cruz Azul, he was actually wearing his own Nike jersey, and we were not wearing Nike at that time. We were wearing Fila. But apparently they allowed him to wear his own jersey with his own brand. So I don't know how that happened, but apparently he was able to wear his own brand.
You got some pull when you can do that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Get a Ferrari from the Galaxy, wear your own jersey for.
Right. You're like, you know what, guys? I'm just going to wear my own jersey. Thanks for supplying me one, but I got this.
Yeah. The funniest thing though was I was watching I think it was one of the games he was commentating, but apparently I think it was if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the 94 World Cup. He, brought out his flashy, of course, his flashy jerseys. Apparently the second and the third goalkeeper had to wear the same exact jersey. So he established that goalkeeper jersey. And so they got a picture of the 2 goalkeepers in the bench wearing that jersey. It's the funniest thing because these 2 guys are like, these taller guys and, he's short, but they're in the bench and these 2 taller dudes wearing his same jersey. It's the funniest thing. They look like the biggest fanboys ever.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That's such.
All right, Phil, what do we got next, man? Where
all right, next? All right. So next we have, we're moving ahead to April, and the 4th of April saw you guys traveling to South Texas to play Rio Grande Valley FC. Now, this is a team that kind of came out of nowhere last year and played a defensive style, which is a little unusual for the Western Conference. So how do you guys think that your trip to Southwest Texas would have gone?
I mean, they played us really hard last year. Our results were 2-1, 2-1. We won, we split, right? So we each won at our own park. And so I think you would see the same kind of result here at the HEB. I think we go in, but I think it's a close match, and I think we return the score because we returned a lot of our same players that we had. And so I think we can go down to Rio Grande and actually turn that tide and that result to a 2-1 Republic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Rio Grande, they were certainly a team that they surprised some people last year. And if you just look at the stats and you look at the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference, the Eastern Conference is kind of the hard-nosed defensive conference, where I don't want to say that the West is more of the finesse conference, but there's certainly where you see the higher scoring games. So just looking last year, it looks like Rio Grande, they scored 50 goals. They allowed 58. So they finished -8. They did very well at home. They were 9-3-5. We're on the road. They were 2-5-10. I think that certainly they're going to be a team that might improve again this year, because they've seemed to be a team that's kind of made a step forward from where they were in 2018. And certainly they're definitely a tougher team at home. But I'm going to say that you guys at least come out of there with a point. I'm going to say that maybe if this one would have finished with like a 1-1 draw.
I'm going to actually say that like we actually do win this game. And, this is just, based solely on the only game that they've played. Like they lost against Los Dos 5-1 at home. And so I think that's a big loss, especially against, an LA2 side. And so I think, we might see a different team this year. And, if they already suffered their first loss at home, it's kind of hard, when you try to play your next home games, you have that, memory present too. And I think even with us, with the Republic, I think it was last season or 2 seasons ago, we were in a run where like we couldn't win at home. I know how complicated that can be, and especially as a fan, going to each game and hoping that you're actually going to get the win and coming out with the tie. So I think they're not going to be as strong just based off the fact that they already lost the first home game, and especially the being 5-1 too. That's a big difference.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you guys. I think you guys go down there and get the win. And Luis, for a lot of the reasons that you kind of pointed out, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that when you're playing teams like this is tough, man. I mean, RGV is essentially Houston Dynamo 2. You got LA 2. So you got all these kind of development squads in this league, which, could be good or bad depending on how you look at it. But when you have a team like Sacramento Republic, that's, they've been together, they have players that have played together before, like you guys have mentioned, going into a place where, looking at this RGV squad, I think a lot of them are new. They're young, as I kind of look through their squad very quickly. And so they're just kind of, a lot of them are getting their feet wet for the first time in professional men's soccer. And Los Dos going down there and, just handing them a 5-1 is going to hurt. And when you're that young, that's that knock on that confidence. I think they have some trouble growing into it. And so I think you guys would go down there, get the victory for sure. This is a team that personally, I think finishes lower on the table than when they finished last year.
Yeah, like that first game against Los Dos 5-1, that's a rough one. I don't know if you can really take the first game of the season and say that one game is how things are going to go. I mean, I think they've been a team that's traditionally been tough at home. They were tough at home last year, but it's certainly one that could go either way. And I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Sacramento did go down there and win it also. But I don't necessarily think that the 5-1 is telling for how Rio Grande's season is going to go, and I certainly don't think that anybody is penciling in Los Dos for a championship either. All right, well, let's move on to the next and final Phoenix Rising game that we have, which would have occurred on April 17th against the hated Orange County Soccer Club. So now this is... at April 17th, we're getting to the point where, we're getting into the meat of the season, where we're not early on in things anymore. And this was a game where when Phoenix traveled to Orange County last year, it was the last game that they lost before they went on the 20-game winning streak. So, Matt, do you think that we would have gone there and avenged that loss this time?
Yeah, I think again, like John pointed out earlier, this is I think one of those that you have scheduled on the calendar. This is a team that we don't like them. They don't particularly like us. Half the time when we travel there, anyways, it's a home game for us because we bring more supporters than they pull in at home. So I think we go there, especially with the depth we have now. I think that was the big thing we saw last year after that 20-game win streak. We got that first loss against Fresno. And then it seemed like just fatigue had set in and that we didn't have enough rotation, but we have a ton of depth this year. I think our guys go into Orange County and get a 2-0 win.
I can definitely see that happening. I mean, you go back to having it scheduled. You lost 2-1. You went on a just torrid run, like where you guys were just steamrolling teams. You Orange County came to you 3-0 beating. I just think that's the game that people mark. Like, the winner of this game is going to take reign of the Western Conference at that point. And so you come out and you put all your eggs in that basket. I'd be interested. I didn't see the schedule. I'd be interested to see who the next game after that is, but it definitely could be one of those games where Phoenix just throws it all in and you come out, unfortunately with Seth on our team now for Sactown FC, I got to say, Seth, it'd probably be 3-1, maybe 3-0, Phoenix Rising.
We'll tell him no mistake on his part though.
No, because he'll hear about it. He'll hear about it.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely.
It was all your fault, Seth. It was all your fault.
I agree with you guys too. I mean, it's a shame that Orange County can't bring more people. I've been to a game there, but yeah, I think you guys have a much stronger team than they do, and so I see you guys coming out with a 3-0 win. Just passing over them, and no mistake again by Seth. It's one of his teammates that makes the mistakes, but I think you guys are gonna have an easy win down there.
So why do you guys think it is that they can't pull supporters? Is it just market saturation down there in Orange County with LAFC and LA Galaxy, and so they're just kind of the small fish, and it's just not appealing?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think that they have too much professional sports, honestly, and even not just on the soccer side. They just have way too much options, and their MLS teams, Galaxy, LAFC, they're so close by. And, I've always kind of been one to say that maybe that team should have probably been given to maybe another city. I mean, I'm thinking back to like a Fresno that just disappeared, unfortunately, because of their stadium situation. And how well,
but coming back.
Oh, that's good to hear that. But if we can only imagine moving the Orange County Stadium over to Fresno, how amazing that would be for that team and the fan base that they have there too. I really think that if we keep seeing these attendance numbers, we might not see an Orange County team in the future, and they might eventually just move it elsewhere. And I think they should do that. There's if they want to move it somewhere else in the state, they can always move it, somewhere up, maybe in the Bay Area, test it out, see if maybe works out somewhere there. Or maybe even move it more northern California too, and see how that works out. But it's just too close to a professional team. And I think that the USL maybe needs to start looking at where they have teams and make sure that they're not that close to like an MLS team. Like I've always thought that's a mistake, but I'm glad to hear that Fresno is coming back because the people there definitely need their team back.
Well, potentially they're not going back to Fresno. That would be right now. It looks like there might be an opening for a franchise in Monterey. So that was one of the things that was talked about in the press conference today. But if you look at LA and the surrounding area, you have all the major sports, right? You have two hockey teams with the Kings and the Ducks, who their season ends around the same time that the USL season starts. Same can be said for basketball with the Clippers and the Lakers. Basketball season ends in June, just as the season's picking up. And then you have LAFC, you have Galaxy, and then you have baseball. You've got the Angels and you've got the Dodgers. And then when they're still going, and you have football, you have the Chargers and you have the Rams. Nobody goes to a Chargers game, and very little people go to a Rams game. but you have so much market saturation with professional sports.
Well, then you've got Disneyland too. I mean, people that go to Orange County, they're going to Disneyland. They're not going to see Orange County SC,
Yeah. And so it's not a good fit for that area. People show up late to games anyway, even if it's professional. They do that at Orange County games. Great team, great culture. Terrible supporting culture, though.
Is this something where they might benefit from, obviously if they can't pull the attendance, that's a large part of revenue for a lot of these USL teams. Is this something where maybe they could benefit from a sale of the club to LAFC and it just gets rebranded as LAFC 2? Do you guys think that would pull some of the LAFC supporters down there to support, or no? You guys are both kind of shaking your head.
Yeah, because Galaxy 2 doesn't even pull, and that's part of the Galaxy.
Right.
So, okay. Oh, you want me to go watch the team that's going to potentially have players that is going to make the first team roster in 4 years? I'll just go to my LAFC game, right? And that's kind of the mindset.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it would be like trying to get somebody to go to a AAA baseball game in a city that has a major league team.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, like I was saying, like if Fresno's not happening anymore, definitely move that franchise, give it to Fresno. I mean, give it to Bakersfield. Bakersfield, is between Fresno and LA. Give it to one of those like cities, because and John, I know it gets super hot there. It's the only issue with maybe Bakersfield, but
it doesn't get hot there. It gets like death hot. Like you go there just to bake.
Oh, it's not any worse than here in Vegas.
Talk about home advantage, though. No, but I think in general, I think they really should give it to whatever city is not, just a couple, like an hour, 2 hours, or maybe more with traffic, but distance wise, like don't give it to a city that's so close to that. I mean, if anything, like looking at other maybe potential cities, you got like Santa Barbara. Maybe give it Santa Barbara. It's a little bit, I mean, it's still not too far, but just give it to some other city that's not around all these things. And Santa Barbara tends to bring about a lot of good players. In fact, I think our player Rodrigo Lopez, our legendary player, I think he comes from that area too. So give it to an area, I think, that has something like that. And the fact that they might be moving or having a team in Monterey, I think is an interesting thing. I mean, the weather's pretty nice out there and there's a lot of things to do around there. I just think that they should really like consider giving it to some other city that's more willing, to have a team around.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think that there's a lot of places that are in the U.S. that, like the Rio Grande Valley, that's a perfect example, or El Paso, that are big markets that don't have professional sports. That there's especially there's a lot of places in the Midwest where you could put a USL championship team, and it would be a market of 500,000 people, and it would be the only game in town, and that's what they really need to look at, is places like that, like a Wichita, for instance. To me, a place like that is going to be better for growing a soccer culture than a place like Orange County, where people walk in with mouse ears and they're walking to the stadium. But getting back into the game, I'm actually going to be a little bit surprising here. And I'm going to say this was not an easy Phoenix Rising victory. I'm not necessarily saying that they win it and lost, but realistically, I cannot ever remember Phoenix Rising having an easy victory at Orange County. Like we said earlier, they did get Thomas E back, and we all know how good he was for them 2 years ago. And it's really, to me, scary that Orange County does have him back, because that just makes them, to me, back into the team that they were, that won the Western Conference regular season 2 years ago, played us very tough in the final. I'm going to say that we went in there. I ended up with a hard-fought 2-2 draw.
I respect that, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just anytime we go in there, when have we ever had an easy game? Even at home, they never give us an easy game. It's just, it's a derby. It doesn't matter where we are in the table. And to me, that's why, as much hate as there is for New Mexico United, Orange County, there's more history. Phoenix Rising and Orange County have played over 20 matches against each other. They've played more times than any other team that Phoenix has played. There's just so much history in that rivalry. And I just, unless one of the clubs just completely falls off the face of the earth talent-wise, I don't ever see either a team going into the other one's building and walking away with an easy victory.
I just saw that this game was a Friday night game.
Well, it was a Friday night, and then the very next Saturday night on April 18th was the very last of our featured games, and that was when you guys had the dreaded New Mexico United travel into Papa Murphy's Park. And how do you guys think that one turned out?
Dreaded, I don't know if that's the case. We went down to Isotopes Park, which is supposed to be this indomitable field. We drubbed them 3-0. So I look at it from this aspect of we went down there, we took care of business, we won 3-0. They came back, they beat us 2-1. A lot because that was when we were giving up goals early on in the game and couldn't recover. So I think this game is very similar to that 3-0 at their place, and it is 2-0 in favor of the Republic.
Like you said, Isotopes Park has been a fortress for them for the most part, except when you guys went in there. On the road, it's been a completely different story. They've been pretty terrible. And for that reason alone, I think that they probably would have came in there and Republic would have beat them, say, 3-2.
Yeah, I think New Mexico loses because I just don't like them.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with all you guys, too. I mean, New Mexico, like you're saying, like, yeah, they were definitely like a standout team last season too, and the people really support them. I mean, they were that kind of market that I was talking about earlier. Like they really wanted a team, and really any professional team that come through, they were ready to support them too. So I think we get an easy win at home. It's an easy 2-0 victory. I remember last season we had that playoff game against them, and we were down, and then we kind of turned it around. So we've beaten them already, both in that game, and then when we played against them over at their home too. So it's been pretty good matchups too. So yeah, I see us winning that.
All right. Well, from what we've gone over here in these key matchups, it sounds like Phoenix Rising and Sacramento are both off to a pretty good start. And having won all the rest of their matches, they're going to be coming into Saturday's match with each club having only lost one, drawn one, and won all of the rest. On Saturday, May 16th, Sacramento is going to travel to Casino Arizona Field. Both teams are going to be fighting for first place in the Western Conference. Whoever wins the match will move either 1-3 points ahead, whatever. I guess it would either be 3 points, so it'll still be tied. But so I'm just setting the scene here because it's hypothetical and I can make it be whatever I want. So we've got a top of the table battle coming up on May 16th. Sacramento at Phoenix Rising. Gentlemen, tell me what's going to happen.
So with it being your guys' show, I'll let you guys go, and I'll give some takes on the two matches we had last year and what I think, if that's okay with you guys.
That works. And Matt, I'm going to go ahead and let you take the first crack.
Oh, well, thanks, man. Yeah, this is again, Sacramento is kind of that club when I see them on the schedule, it doesn't put a lot of confidence in me. I'm not I'm a pessimistic guy when it comes to my teams anyways. Maybe that's just because, I like to set myself up for, the elation of pulling off a victory. I thought we couldn't win. But head to head, man, this is a one-sided matchup. 4 draws, 4 wins for Sac Republic, 1 win for Phoenix Rising. And so, the last time we met was August of last year. It was 2-1, I believe, here in Phoenix. And that was that one victory, So I think this is a hard fought match, especially if you're talking both teams coming in, competing for first place. I think it's a rowdy crowd that night at Casino Arizona Field. And I think this one's a tight game, 0-0, maybe into the 80th minute and beyond. And then one of these teams, I think you could really just flip a coin on this, that one team would kind of nick a goal in kind of the dying moments. And I'm kind of thinking back to the game last year, Phoenix Rising in the midst of that run. I forgot who we were playing right off the top of my head. I believe it was San Antonio at home. But it took a Solomon Asante free kick in the 88th, 89th minute for us to get that victory. So that's kind of what I'd see here, man. So, I'm going to go, it's a 1-0 game. And at this point, you just flip a coin with whichever team comes out. It's the team that makes the mistake ultimately that loses.
Yeah. If you go back to the match on the 27th of April, the 7th match of the year, it was a snooze fest, right? It wasn't a lot of attacking. If you look at the way the game was played, it was much about filling each other out early in the season. Nobody wants to make a mistake, and they end up drawing 0-0. The only thing that came out of that game was a yellow card to Fernandez in the 10th minute. And we had 2, Kevin and Shannon, both getting yellow cards. And that was the only highlight of that match. You move to the game later on during your guys' win streak, game 24 for us. Again, going back to conceding an early goal in the 7th minute, not only an early goal, an own goal, not really being able to recover from that, because then they scored again. We scored in the 2nd minute of the game. So it was, it was that way. But the whole game was very dominant for the Republic. If you look back and you remember that game, there was a lot of attacking football from the Republic. They just couldn't finish. In fact, so much so that Rising was on their back heel for most of the second half, trying to hold on to that lead, almost like a Moreno park the bus style. So in this match, I see kind of similar to that first match in April of last year, where they were trying to fill each other out. They both know what's on the line. They don't want to give up too much, and they don't want to be looking at a potential loss. So I think you see a 1-1, maybe a 2-2 draw.
Yeah, no, as you were talking about the game, yeah, that was a sad game. We go up 1-0, 2nd minute, we're all good. We're like, okay, this is good. What a better way to start, especially at you guys' stadium, which is always a tough venue to go to. And then, we end up, like so close to tying. And I remember all the typical, of course, time wasting with any team, towards the end and all that too. So, I picture it, as being really even matched. Like kind of John was saying too, it's beginning of the season. Teams don't really know, where they're at yet. And so, I give us a 2-2 tie where, it goes both sides. One team scores first, other team ties, and then it goes on for 2-1, 2-2. So that's how I see it. It's going to be that way. But the other game we play at home, I think that might be another story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you guys are all right on the mark. I mean, these are a couple of clubs that they never really seem to have a very easy game. It's always a battle. And Cameron Owasa scored that 2 minutes into the game goal last season that you guys were mentioning. And he's a guy that just always seems to give Phoenix trouble. And he's one of those guys that, we talk about not wanting to see Sacramento come to town in general, but Owasa is just a guy that, I don't want to see him on the pitch. He could go to the Eastern Conference. He could go to Germany. Just don't be on a Western Conference team anymore, because he always just gives Phoenix so much trouble. That being said, Casita Arizona Field is a fortress. When we travel to Sacramento later in the year, it definitely might be a different story. But I'm going to say that another one of your defenders gives away an own goal, just like in the last game. And Phoenix ends up holding on for a 2-1 win.
I wouldn't be surprised that sometimes happens. And, I think that the worst own goals are the ones where, the ball's going out, guy just, decides to just, be in that spot and it just hits him and it just goes in. Those are the worst, the ones that, it wasn't even going towards goal. It was going out. And it went in. Yeah. I could see that happening. I know we had a couple of them last season too. And yeah, those are the worst.
Well, I hope that if you guys have one that happens against Phoenix, but then you guys can have good luck at the rest of your games, and then we can meet you guys in the Western Conference Finals, and we can have a great podcast to talk about it. And this has been so much fun. I know it was kind of an off the wall idea, but I really think this has been fun, just kind of getting a chance to talk about if these games had happened. And it's just, it goes to prove how what there is to love about this game. Is because the four of us can look at a game and think of four completely different outcomes, and that's the beauty of it, is that regardless of what any of us said, the game could have ended up going that way. I mean, that's what I love about live sports. It's not scripted. Every time you go there, you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And I really appreciate having you guys on the show. And you just have to promise that we could do this again as soon as there's live football.
Hey, anytime. We're always available to chat anything football, even with everything that's going on again with development academies and USL coming out today and making their announcement, with the potential of having the women participate in those development academies, as we posted on our Twitter.
That'd be awesome.
So yeah, there's still a lot to be discussed, gentlemen. There's a lot to be discussed, and we look forward to the opening of camps for small sessions here in the next week. And
yeah, that's right. Small sessions.
Potentially some soccer in July, which will be awesome.
Yes, it will, man. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight and talking with us. It was certainly an honor for us to have you guys on the podcast.
Jonathan, Luis, I really appreciate your time, and it is an honor to have you on the show, and it was an honor to be on your guys' show last week. And like I said at the beginning, anybody who hasn't listened to the show last week, go on YouTube. And it's the Sactown FC Podcast channel on YouTube, or do you have a different YouTube channel name?
So for that account, it is simply, it's just Sactown FC. So, and it's got our logo of the bear holding the scarf in front of the Tower Bridge. So type it in. You can go to our website as well, sactownfc.com, and you can actually get loaded onto the website that way as well, or for our YouTube.
Yeah, and we'll be having that episode up in the next coming weeks as well on our own podcast platform as well. But yeah, thank you, Phil. Thank you, Matt. I mean, it was awesome being here and talking to you guys about these matchups, and just talking about these matchups. I'm super excited already to see these games and see how they turn out. And yeah, definitely whenever we play against you guys, be awesome if we have you guys on our pod again, and then maybe when we play at Phoenix, we can jump on your pod and we can kind of play it that way.
Yeah, when the game does actually happen, if you guys are able to make it down to Phoenix, we got some tickets and some beers here for you. Like I said, it's just been an honor to have you guys on the show, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.
Cheers. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Have a good one, guys.
You too, guys.